Welcome back to the Midnight Poker Session. I'm with my friends Gill and Rosie. We sit down at a 1-2 table and we buy in for $500. And this session is a painful one, so enjoy the swings and enjoy the action. Our first hand, we get involved with our friend Rosie. There's a $5 straddle. He raises up to $25 and middle position calls. And I peel 7-6 of diamonds, a great 3-bet candidate. From the small blind, when we're raising like this, Rosie's going to really expect us to have very strong hands here. And also, we'll get the middle position player out of here, and hopefully we'll get heads up. So we put in $90 for our raise, a little bit larger than 3x, especially out of position and with an extra player in there. And Rosie puts in the call, and then the middle position player folds, so that's a good sign. And now we're going heads up to a flop against one of our good friends. This 3-bet was a squeeze, and we failed to take down the pot pre, so now we have to battle against our friend Rosie. The flop comes king, king, 6. This is a great board for our range, and we do hit a pair, which is nice, but we would continue with all our bluffs with a C-bet here. I don't think I'd be checking any of my hands, maybe a slow-played ace-king, but that's about it. So we're going to put a continuation bet here to protect our small pair against any overcards like, you know, ace-5, ace-jack, etc. And then we get the good news. Rosie folds. We don't want to play a heads-up pot against this guy, and if he calls our c-bet, we got to give up. So glad to take this first one down.
You win this round, mister.
In this hand, we're going to be battling against our good friend Giljack Poker. There's a $5 straddle and 1 limper, and we peel queen 10 of hearts. We're going to raise it up to $35, and Gill in the cutoff decides to raise us to 105. He 3-bets us instantly, and when it folds to us, I think we should just be putting the call here. No reason to 4-bet raise this. Gill will find some spicy jams over our 4-bet, thinking we're light because we play often, and our history goes deep, so I don't need to explain any further. So I put in the call. $220 in the pot, and the flop comes 5, deuce, 6, rainbow. We have absolutely nothing other than backdoor hearts and 2 overs. We check, and Gill decides to c-bet small on this board. He makes it $55, and I think we're gonna peel here with queen high, possibly try to take it down on the turn, or turn our hand into a bluff, or hit one of our overcards. So we put in the chips pretty loose, but it's okay sometimes. The turn is the ace of hearts. It's a good card, and it's a bad card. He has all the aces, and we only have a flush draw now. And we have no overs to this card because it's the best card in the deck. So I decided to put in the check here, obviously. And Gill decides to down bet again. He makes it $90, nearly 1/3 the size of the pot. So with 2 down bets, I think when we drill our backdoor flush draw, we can turn our hand into a bluff. The only hands he'd be down betting here like this would be, what, pocket aces? And I still think this board is dicey and better for our range. We have all the pocket 5s and 6s in our range, and sometimes we'll have deuces, and sometimes we'll have ace-5. For all those reasons, and versus the small bet, I think a jam will take this pot down. So I'm strictly going with a hard read here, and I think the ace is not a card he wants to see, and he's strictly range betting and trying to take it down for a cheap price. Maybe as an overpair to the original flop, like 7s, 8s, 9s, or 10s. And when we go all in, it looks like we're going for max value or a big time bluff. And we'll see what happens when we put all the chips in the middle. So we shove for $340. After 2 minutes and 30 seconds, Gill decides to put in the call here. And I tell him one time, because either we hit our card or we don't. And I doubt he has an ace after thinking for this long. So I think we might be flipping versus a pair. And when the river comes, the most magical card in the deck, it is the jack of hearts. And we have the queen high flush, and Gill folds. And he is so mad at us for getting there and only running it once as well. After this session, I asked Gill what he had, and he told me he had pocket 9. So he had the soul read. He was right, and we got lucky. And our semi-bluff, I guess it didn't work, and we just got there. If you're looking for crazy action like that, click the link in my bio and support me as a poker player by joining our club and hang out and have a good time online. It's called the Cheddar Club on Club GG. All right, we peel Jack 9 of diamonds. There's a $5 straddle and 2 limps, and we put in $30 as our raise. The button decides to put in the call, but the other opponents fold. So now we're going heads up to a flop, which comes 9-3-4 with 2 clubs. We got top pair, and we're first to act. I think we're going to go for value and protection versus overcards and club draws, so we bet $35. Our opponent puts in the call, not very surprising. The turn comes the 8 of spades. Not really a game-changing card. Maybe 9-8 got there, but that's about it. That's calling. I don't think he has pocket 10s or jacks here because he didn't re-raise pre-flop. And now we're going to pull out a special tool. A lot of people in these positions will put me on ace-king and thinking I'm bluffing, so we're going to go for a polarized size. There's $145 in the pot right now, and we're going to overbet that size, and we're going to make it $175. I think the only hand we have to worry about here would be ace-9, king-9, queen-9, and 8-9. And I think we're going to get max value against overcards with a flush draw like king, queen of clubs. So we slide out a large stack of chips, and our opponent calls rather quickly. This stunned me. I think he'd be thinking about it a little longer, but he must have either a huge hand or a huge draw. The turn brings the queen of hearts. This could be a blank, but like I mentioned earlier, king, queen of clubs just hit top pair, and I think we have to go into check call mode and let him bluff off any of his club draws that missed. So we check, and he snap checks back. We turn over jack 9. I don't think I'm good here most of the time. It feels like we're lost to ace 9, but he decides to muck his cards, and we scoop a nearly $500 pot coming our way with just second pair on this board. And I'm really happy with my overbets. I think it gets called sometimes by flush draws, but here in Texas, it's just a special tool to get as much value as you can when you have a pair, and it looks like you're bluffing. All right, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Enjoy my poker journey. These vlogs have been a lot of fun. And this next hand, we look down at ace-3 of spades. There's a $5 straddle on, and I forgot to mention it's 1 a.m. right now, so we're late into the night. The button decides to call, and he says verbally to me that he'll give me action. And this is the guy who we just took a lot of money from with jack 9. There's $65 in the middle, and the flop comes 6-6-5. I think this is a perfect board to c-bet, so we c-bet for $35, and our opponent calls. The turn is magical. It's the ace of clubs. And I think we're going to still bet here for value, so we make it $115. So when our opponent calls again here, I think we need to check this river and sometimes bluff catch. I'm not really sure what gives you action means and what that range is compromised of. Maybe he has a 6. And when the turn comes the 10 of spades, my first initial reaction is to check, but then we go into the tank a little bit longer. Are we going to call a massive bet? Most likely. So why don't we set our own price with a blocker bet? And if he decides to raise, we can fold our hand since our kicker does not play. So pretty much I just want to set my own price and fold if he raises. So we put out $50 and he snap calls. We turn over ace-3, but our opponent has a better hand. He has ace-king, so he out kicks us on this flop. And I'm so surprised he didn't raise pre-flop. So we lose a decent sized pot, and we're on to the next one. We start recording when the flop comes out. It's jack 8-9 with 2 hearts. And guess what we peel, guys? We have 10-7 of spades on the button straddle. What a hand. We have the nuts right now, the nut straight. I can't believe it. Now let's begin the action. Early position and middle position decide to check, and then the cutoff bet's $25. We're going to raise it up to 100 with the nuts. Early position folds and middle position calls my $100 raise. So now it's getting very funky, like what I did there. And then the cutoff jams all in for $290. When it gets to me, I rejam to isolate our opponent, and the middle position caller of the $100 decides to get out of there. So now we're going to 2 turns and river. My opponent requests to run it twice. I agree. He turns over ace-8 of hearts, and I have 10-7 for the nut straight. So we're going to 2 boards, and the first board is the queen of hearts and the 10 of clubs, so we lose that one to the nut flush. And the second board is the 4 clubs and the queen of spades. Our opponent and I chop around $115. We both profit around $58 in total. But damn, there's no crazier feeling than flopping the nuts in poker, especially in a limps pot, and then it gets this wild after. So in this next hand, we look down at ace-king offsuit. We're in the big blind. The button decides to raise to $20, and we're going to 3-bet him to $75, an action player, and he snap calls. With $150 in the middle, the flop comes 5-4-3 with 2 diamonds. I think it's a great board to c-bet. 2 overs. We have a gutter to the straight, so we're going to continue here for $50. We put it in the middle, and our opponent jams for $200. This guy's been getting it in very light, and I think with our 2 overs, we might even be good here. I know this sounds wild, but in Texas, it's good to always keep notes on players and what kind of hands they play and how they play them. That's what makes live so fun. And this guy is action player, and we want to give it to him to receive it as well. So we call. He requests to run it twice. Of course, we're going to do that, especially if he's the one going all in. There's $630 in the middle, and the first board comes the 8 of hearts and then the 9 of hearts. And our opponent turns over a hand that we were beating until this river. He has Queen 7 of hearts with absolutely air. He only had the gutter to the straight. A 6 would give him a straight. That was the only equity he had. And he had the Queen of hearts, obviously an overcard. But that is wild that he goes runner, runner, flush. The second board is the 8 of spades, and the river is the 8 of diamonds. So we chop this pot and make 0 money. But this action is insane, and it's like 1:30 a.m. right now. Let's continue the fun. Another wild hand. We look down at ace queen in the big blind. There's a $10 blind raise and 5 callers. We have a premium holding. We're gonna raise it up. We make it $100. And guess what happens? We get 3 callers. We get 3 callers. That is wild. We raise it to $100 over $5, and 3 people call. So the flop comes, not good for us. King 8 4 rainbow. I decided check since we're out of position to all other players, and everybody checks around. The turn is the 3 of spades, and our opponent with the white gloves in the top left hand of the corner decides to go all in for $300. Everyone folds, and he turns over a hand I could not believe. 4 deuce of clubs. This guy is here to push people around and let us know that no one is getting past him. This night is getting even more wild. It's around 2 a.m. and we're on to the next hand already. We lose this pot, but we gain valuable information, and that is we can get more money from this guy because he calls light. All right, this is a funky punt, and I'm not trying to replicate this in the future, but I gotta share it because this is the story that we're telling. We started recording on the flop when this happened, but the pre-flop action was there's a raise from middle position to 20, MP2 calls, and I call. So we're going 3 ways to a flop with king of spades, 9 of hearts, and it comes king high, but it's all hearts. So we have top pair with the 9 high flush draw. So both opponents check to me, and since we have top pair with the 9 high flush draw, we're gonna bet here for protection and for value. I don't think our 9 high flush draw will be good against the original raiser, but we will see what happens. So it checks to me, and we're gonna put out $25. The original raiser calls, but the other player folds, so now we're heads up, going to a turn, which is the 8 of diamonds. And now this is where it gets a little wild. Our opponent checks to us, and we decide to continue here for $70. We want to make this look like a value size, no reason to go crazy big, and our opponent decides to check raise to $525. A massive raise. This is enormous. Like, what the hell is this? So after this raise, you know, from my perspective, watching this again, this is a snap fold. We should probably only be tanking here with like a set of 8s. That is the only thing that we should be possibly calling here. I know that sounds wild because it feels like a flush, but a flush doesn't do this. The nut flush never does this, and mostly bluffs do this. So that's essentially, I couldn't convince myself to fold. I wanted to be sticky here, and I wanted to gamble, which is not something I'm really proud of, but I want to share it because it's the mistake I made. So I decided to re-raise him all in for the rest of my chips, which is around $770. And our opponent sighs and is pretty frustrated, but he calls. And we decided to run 2 boards. The first board comes the 7 of clubs, and the second comes the 4 of spades. So we miss. We only have top pair. We show our king 9, and we lose to pocket 3s. In my notes, I say that this player is loose and aggressive, but I don't think I should always be using these reads as my way to play poker. I think a hard read should only be a hard read, not just a hunch. So we get punished badly, and we make a massive mistake, but I just want to show you guys that this was a gambling move, and I'm not proud of it, but I want to share it. And now it's time to battle back. We reload for around $370. We look down at ace of hearts, queen of spades, a premium. We're in late position, and we're going to raise it up to $25. Gill in the cutoff is looking for some revenge. He raises it up to $75, and then the button and the big blind call his 3 bets. And we have the perfect stack size to get max fold equity, and we have a great candidate for a bluff. So we're going to 4-bet shove all in for the rest of our chips, $368 going in the middle. And then it gets back to Gill, and he ISO shoves for $800 to go heads up with me. And then the big blind player decides to call, and the button gets out of there. So now we're going 3 ways, all in a nearly $1,400 pot. So we decide to all turn over our cards, and Gill and I have the same hand, ace queen offsuit, and our other opponent has king 10 of clubs. So king 10 of clubs is the most live, and now we're going to a board. And the board comes 8, 9, deuce, rainbow. Looking good so far. The turn is the 4 of clubs. Gill and I are still in the lead for the chop, and the river is the 5 of hearts. So after it's all said and done, Gill and I chop around $1,089, and we win $177 in this pot with ace queen offsuit. Hey man, nice playing through Gill, and nice ISO reshove. You got the read in. It's currently 3 a.m. We have found a new spot. Rosie has left, and now it's just Gill and I and a bunch of action players at Poker House. This is why we came down here for a whole week, is to be in these spots and play these games right here. Fast forward to 4 a.m. at night. We peel king queen offsuit, and look, our entire stack's in the middle. What just happened? Gill put in the blind raise to $10. Under the gun made it 60, and there was one caller in between, and now it's back to us. We have great removal to strong hands like ace king, pocket queens, pocket kings. Not the perfect reason to go all in, but we do have a great hand that has great playability, and we have the perfect stack size to take down around $130 in the middle. So we go all in. We're going to apply max pressure with this decent holding. So yeah, we put it all in, and we get a snap call from the under the gun raiser, and everybody else folds. It's $1,000 pot. And guess what we're up against? You're not going to believe it. It's Jack 10 offsuit. Jack 10 offsuit, guys. And in the window, we see a king. The flop comes king 3-10. Our opponent has middle pair, and we need to fade a 10 and a jack. Now, the turn is the deuce of spades, and the river is the 4 of spades. And we just scoop $1,000 pot and double up with king queen offsuit versus jack 10 offsuit. Oh my gosh, what a wild night. And now it gets back to us, and we are in the double straddle, guys. So it's $5, $10, $20. This is a blind raise, and you will not believe the cards we peel. We look at pocket aces, and there's a raise from the small blind from Gill. So now it's back to us. We have pocket aces, the best hand in poker. What do we want to raise it to? Because we have to raise it. We can't smooth call and go and see a flop multi-way. It's too risky here with how much money we have behind. We have roughly $800+ behind, so we want to put in a raise here. We make it $220. I think we could go bigger here, but with such a premium hand, I don't think we're really squeezing light here often. And guess what happens? Gill and the action player put in the call, so now it's a $680 pot. The flop comes king 8 deuce with 2 spades. Gill checks, and then the action player leads into me for $200. All right, I think it's time to go for value against this action player. I think he has king queen a lot, king jack. He'll have ace king sometimes, but we have a double blocker to that. So when it folds to us, I think it's a good spot to put in the jam and get value against any spade draws that want to see a cheap turn. So we go all in for $880. Gill gets out of there quickly, and our opponent snap calls. Okay, hoping to dodge a spade, it feels like. The turn is the 10 of hearts, and the river is the queen of clubs. We're about to turn over our pocket aces, but our opponent shows us his cards first, and it's disaster. He has pocket eights for a flopped middle set, and we lose a $2,440 pot. When it's 5:30 a.m. and you lose a pot like this, normally I leave, but I don't do that. I add on for another $500, and we keep playing. It's currently 5:44 a.m., and the next hand we look at is ace of spades, deuce of spades, and we're going to be battling against Gill in this hand. This is 3 hands later after getting our pocket aces cracked. The action player who had pocket eights raises it up to 20. I put in the call, and so does the button and the big blind Gill. So now we're going 4 ways to a flop, which is 8-5-5 with 2 spades. Gill checks, and under the gun decides to continue for 45. I call, the button folds, and so does Gill. So now we're going 3 ways to a turn, which gives us the 9 of spades. Both Gill and the under gun raiser, the action player check, And now I think it's time to go for value, and we decide to go for half the size of the pot, $115. And then it gets back to Gill, and he surprisingly decides to re-raise us to $325. What? The under the gun raiser decides to fold, and now it's back to me. We only have like $100+ behind, so we jam, and Gill snap calls, and we show him the nut flush. And I'm assuming he has a 5, and he confirms that later on that he does have a 5. The river is the 4 of hearts, and we scoop this pot. And we're so sad to take Gill's money, but sometimes you clash with your friends, and whatever. It is what it is. On to the next hand. Now, sadly, I didn't capture this hand or write down the notes for it because I was so frustrated and tilted. But to keep it short and sweet, we look down at 10, 8 of spades. We isolate the action player to $30. We had to call from the button and the action player. We're going 3 ways to a board where we hit top pair. What ends up happening is 2 more face cards peel on the turn and the river, and we end up calling off our entire stack versus that action player, but he flopped a set of deuces on a low connected board. This is where it just got bad. I got sticky. It's late at night. I'm not making good decisions. And then, god damn it, this next clip, we blind jam under the gun, and it's 7 a.m. in the morning. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. We peel jack deuce offsuit for jack high, and we lose versus pocket 9s. And we end up losing around $1,370 on the night. And this is where the implosion has ended. We're going to wrap it up, and Gill and I are going to drive home while the sun is rising. And I'm not proud of any of the decisions I've made so far, starting at 2 a.m. and moving on. So hopefully this is a lesson to y'all. Hope you guys enjoyed the craziness. I'll see you guys in the next video.